The beginning of Weapons would have you believe it is a film of isolation, of the individual. Right now, it's Justine Candy. The first time we see her, we aren't even with her. We follow the back of her head like we're walking behind her in a corridor, waiting for her to move out of the way. We don't see her face once in this entire tracking shot, and anyone we do see, it's through a blurry haze, as if they're in another world, out of focus. When we are allowed to see Justine's face, she too occupies this other blurred world, because now, it's the back of Alex Lilly's head in focus. Weapons only has focus for one subject at a time. It's not until Justine's title card, now she's the one in focus, that we truly see her face, and out of her eyes. We hear the angry mob of parents biting at her heels through her ears, peer through the blinds through her eyes, watch Shark Tank through her mostly ears, but we slam the lime down on the table with her hands. Rigging the audience to the character's senses like this allows the insight of palpable empathy. An ambivalent wide shot of the liquor store would make us feel safe, but comforting omniscience is eschewed for nervous tunnel vision as we fear anything outside our own frame of reference. Seeing a neutral, impartial liquor store would dissolve the tension of this panic scan, but this subjective, over-the-shoulder pan lives in Justine's paranoia, because it's our paranoia too. We too look out defensively through her untrusting eyes. But it's not a one-woman play. Other characters do exist in Justine's world, but even when they're in visual focus, as characters, they exist solely as functions of Justine's own experience. We only see other people as they are seen through whoever's eyes we're taking turns in. We don't see Archer Graff, we see antagonist. Through Justine's eyes, through her lens, they're in Justine's focus. They occupy her biases, until Archer and Marcus are in narrative focus. In their own stratified chapters, they are, for now, just vicious heckler and protective boss. This loneliness of perspective is a product of director Zach Cregger's hypersubjective approach.
I'm very interested in like hypersubjectivity. And so that was something that Larkin Seipel's my DP, and that's something that we talked about a lot, is like, every chapter should be hypersubjective. And so we should always be in a POV or an OTS and, really just living in the perspective of who we're following.
As such, Weapons assures a cinematic tribalism. Each perspective character anchors a narrative bubble, which only from inside is the character explored in depth. Only from inside the bubble do we gain access to their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Outside, the bubble walls simplify others into streamlined archetypes, rendered as silhouettes. Gazing through them, we perceive only friend or foe. So, every character is discreetly isolated. But that's not quite true, is it?
I love you so much.
We'll get to that. Next up, it's Archer's turn for sketch to be shaded in, to be coloured in between the lines. Now Justine is our antagonist, but we've lived life in the other bubble. Having now transcended the sequestration, we cannot impartially inhabit Archer. We still embody Justine's memories of these events, and despite now reliving these events as Archer, we don't overwrite them, but expand them. The same hyper-subjective perspective is recontextualized through our bifocal lens, our bifocal interpretation. Our familiarity with the inside of Justine's head sprouts an empathy no matter how suspicious the stakeout shots of her, disputing her current narrative role as suspect, and reciprocally, Archer's role as antagonist. The deeper we gain perspective, our focality of lens expands. Bubbles are popped, and relationships are decompartmentalized. When we first encounter James, he's a manifestation of Justine's paranoia. He pushes into Justine's frame, into our perspective, to agitate the social claustrophobia that characterizes his Justine chapter so far. It's not until we live in his bubble that his role as one of the key, albeit accidental, investigators of the mystery is uncovered. As Justine, doused in vodka by an aggrieved donor, we intuit the invisible thread that connects sleeping with her on and off again boyfriend with her frustration. But as Paul, We recontextualize this frustration as having been cheated on by your very much on boyfriend while you were away on a work trip. The increasing polyphony of the film as it progresses, folding in the perspectives of Paul, James, Marcus, Alex, elucidates and substantiates the invisible threads that connect Maybrook. Across Weapons' runtime, we gradually connect and recontextualize as characters through intuiting the many interpersonal connections they themselves aren't even aware of. We piece together the invisible web by catching glimpses of its threads from every angle, a relationship map of the town. But to understand the ramifications of this web, we need to look at Archer's dream. We learn that having lost his son Matthew, Archer's life has completely deteriorated. To Archer, Matthew was a wall he did not realise was load-bearing until it was removed. Here's Josh Brolin.
You have a guy who's like, typical manual masculinity.
Yep.
I don't emote with my son. Right. I don't this. I'm a man. I have in construction. I build things. And then you take that thing that's essential to that guy away and watch him start to break down. And he can't control anything. He's trying to control. Why aren't you doing your job? Why did this? Where is my kid? Yeah. And then by the end, he breaks. And then he realizes that this thing that was essential to him and what it really does mean to him, and allows him to just be present and emotional.
Inside a dream, all pretense and egotistical posturing is stripped away. With no one else watching and no conscious control, a dream manifests the authentic, often buried truth. As such, Archer finds himself trapped in his own guilt. He desperately wants to reach his lost son, but chasing him only leads him back to his own house and the confession that he never told his son he loved him when he had the chance, and now he's lost forever. Did he push him away? Was this his fault? In this guilt, he lashes out. He scapegoats Justine because he needs a target for his grief. Without an enemy to punish, the realization that he failed his son is all that's left. There's also a big gun cloud. So, yeah. Archer's need to unwaveringly project machismo robbed him of unabashedly embracing the son he loved. All that connects Archer and his son now is the intangible, invisible thread of their filial connection. Archer's memories, fears, love, and regrets of his relationship with his son still connect them, no matter how far apart they are. But thinking of Matthew, invoking Matthew in his dream, pulling on this invisible thread, there is someone else on the line.
I love you so much.
Who else can think of an example of a parasite? Anyone?
As the parasitic cordyceps continue to feed off its body.
The parasites on TV, and she's teaching a lesson on. I mean, yeah, I'm taking a page out of every movie ever made where someone's teaching a class, and they have to kind of explain the subtext of the movie and the lesson. So I'm guilty of that.
Aunt Gladys is a parasite. It's not just us, the viewer, that can see the invisible threads conjoin and overlap, compiling the invisible web that maps the members of Maybrook's community. There's a parasitic spider at its centre. Terminally ill, Gladys has turned to regenerating her life force by siphoning it from those she possesses. Using a physical object of theirs, a material imprint of their life, Gladys physically plugs into them, assimilating their mind and hijacking their body, providing a Trojan horse for passing along their pre-existing interpersonal connective threads, like commandeering a train, such to travel unimpeded along its routes, than leaving its usual driver tied to the tracks. To maximise her parasitic recovery, Gladys targets the most youthful and impressionable mind to harvest, abducting 17 children. Their younger mind is a newer train, less wear and tear, so more energy to consume. Mentally, maglev, instead of conventional multiple unit, which is better because Gladys is like a steam locomotive. Anyway, this dream, in fact, these dreams, reveal the tangibility of the web. Justine, Archer have never once encountered Gladys. This face does not exist in their memories, in their experiences. let alone her association with the disappearance that colours her jump scariness. That's because this vision isn't coming from their minds. Justine is tethered to her class, Archer to his son. So, when dreaming, when the barrier between the conscious and the subconscious is at its most permeable, Gladys, the figure of abduction, is revealed, harvesting Matthew's mind, an act analogous to interfacing with the invisible web. Gladys leaves her own psychic footprint. As such, when Archer communes with Matthew's imprint on his own mind, reaching out for Matthew's mind in his dream, he pulls on this invisible psychic thread that connects him and his son, revealing the presence of Gladys and her absorption of it. Weapons says the web of community is not social theory, it's metaphysics. And while our privileged position as audience grants us holistic mobility to chart the web, from inside the heads of Maybrook's members, the sense of community is nowhere to be seen. We saw the disconnect firsthand. Without hopping minds like we can, none of these people understand just how interconnected they really are. But Gladys does. She operates on this heightened psychic plane and feeds off it. Perhaps once upon a time, Maybrook had a thriving community spirit. Maybe over time, isolationism grew, tribalism grew like weeds. The community became increasingly fragmented, fallen into disrepair, or maybe they never fostered a community at all. Either way, they are connected, whether they realise it or not. A threaded community bubbles under the surface, or rather, stretches out over their heads. Regardless, like an abandoned train station, the interpersonal infrastructure remains, despite its dilapidation. It is on the vulnerable rails of this forgotten community that Gladys feeds. And now she's titillated the psychic web. Reverberations pulse from her activity. So, while sleeping, mental firewalls weakened, those attuned to the web, across their strong threads, strong personal connections, are alerted to her and observe her psychic projection. Archer reaches out for Matthew's mind and finds it, occupied by someone else. Justine, prominent connective node in the interpersonal web, is tied to every child Gladys now pilots. There is a third and final witness to Gladys's echo too. Okay, now hear me out. James, fresh from shooting up heroin, therefore occupies an elevated state of mind analogous to that of the dream state of Justine and Archer, and as such he too observes Gladys's psychic projection. Sure, he doesn't have the same direct personal attachment to any of the children, that we know of. So maybe heroin is stronger than dreams, and James's high unlocks an accelerated acuity to the socio-psychic web. Look, it would be a much easier sell if he was popping shrooms instead, but Jesse did levitate towards the ceiling in Breaking Bad, so heroin stronger than dreams. Sensitive to the web, Justine, Archer, James subconsciously detect reverberations, Gladys's activity within it, and discerning the vibrations along its threads, are instinctively, investigatively drawn to her location, a kind of secondary psychosociality. Side note, that Stat Trek AR-15 storm cloud over Matthew's house in the dream? Don't you worry, Zach, because I do. It's Archer's subconscious awareness of the weaponization of his connection with his son. Dreams are an abstract plane, so ideas are communicated in abstracted ways, with Archer's perception shaping the form of the idea. In rural American dad language, what is the most obvious word for weapon? Big assault rifle. 217, the time of Matthew's disappearance, acts as shorthand for the disappearance itself. Matthew's weaponized disappearance, metaphysically communicated by the web. What if it's not just the higher calories of a more energetic mind, but by specifically targeting the town's children, Gladys is maximizing her food supply through their connections? Think about it. You need minds to feed on, and we know Gladys operates through the invisible threads of community. 17 children, lots of energy to steal. But by extension, That's an average of 34 parents with deep, dense interpersonal connection, a very established set of train tracks, and teachers, all the other school staff. Gladys is casting a wider net by targeting the group that everyone in Maybrook cares most about, its children. They even all know each other from class, the same class they were all taken from. This would be an interpersonally rich meal, even before factoring in how they even act as the thread tying other parents together. This lady? Bailey's mom. Another thread to the web. As if reasserting the interconnectivity of his community, Archer's immediate response to his dream is to cartographize this thread, tangibly mapping lines and collaborating with parents of another missing child, Bailey's mom, to do so. Symbolically, Archer reconstructs the invisible threads of community, reinforcing and reifying their capability to connect people as a means of reconnecting with his son, their connection now made tangible, and therefore traceable, pursuable. And now, at the film's climax, we reach the centre of the web. Alex's house. Gladys's base. The gradual build of polyphony reaches a cacophonous boiling point as the strands of the web collide. Justine and Paul's threads finally clash. Archer and James smash into each other, one more so than the other, and Alex sets his class free. Before the web can be liberated, it must be reforged in the crucible of Act 3 carnage. A final catharsis of convergence, supplanting stifled isolation with a dramatic reunification. In order for Gladys to be overcome, the dilapidated communal connections have to be renovated and reclaimed. Archer substitutes his impotent rage towards Justine for empathetic collaboration, renewing their relationship in pursuing the truth and the galvanization of their responsibility for their children. Justine once again checking on Alex Lilly, and Archer finally consoling his son. The invisible thread between Archer and his son is reified in this admittance of love. Empathy reconnects the severed nerves between members of the community, and its reconstruction demands the destruction of its barriers. Finally, in the film's denouement, these shielding garden fences that segment the community are spectacularly demolished in a unifying sequence of visual cohesion. The camera passes through neighbourhoods, now decentralised from a singular perspective, cutting between Justine and Archer, Alex, at will, having now shed its hyper-subjective restrictions. Embracing multi-subjectivity flushes Gladys out of the system, rejects the predation on division. Through polyvocality, the community is reborn, galvanized. Collaboration turns this into this.
Alex Lilly lives in this house.
It is Gladys's consumption of connection that evinces its nourishing effect, while Gladys's abuse of connection props up a metaphysical vampirism. Her destruction ensures its rejuvenating properties are redistributed to the nourishment of previously neglected relationships, and therefore their subjects. The film's closing line.
Some of them even started talking again this year.
A rekindling of communication, as it accompanies a bittersweet reunification of the community and its disparate souls. And if this film truly is the
completely introverted kind of diary entry
Cregger describes it to be, one where characters represent fractions of oneself.
Every character, when I met with Zach after I read, I thought, a really well-designed script, he told me that every character is based off a certain reaction that he was having to a very traumatic event that happened to him.
Then it may even be an exercise in the reattachment of the disparate parts of the self into a reconstructed, coherent whole.